prior, Sombra stopped at the base of Cloud Mountain looking up at the sheer cliffs.
I will have to hurry.
He thought to himself.
If the sun grows too strong before I reach the top, I will rematerialize.
Sombra mentally reached inside himself to what little dark magic remained. His eyes began to glow with a light green hue, and his body dissolved into mist. The mist snaked quickly up the cliff heading for Cloudsdale. Present day, Black Belt stood his ground as the Pawnee he had just attacked turned its head to look at him. Its eyes were a glossy gray-white, and in a monotone, almost computer-like voice it said,
"Logic error. Your present course of action is both unnecessary and dangerous."
Black Belt flattened his ears in anger.
I won't let you Empire scum disgrace this sacred city any further,
He said. The Pawnee just blinked and asked,
Query, of which empire do you speak?
Black Belt's ears came up, and he lowered his hooves a little.
You mean you're not a soldier of the Empire?
He asked.
Negative.
The Pawnee responded.
My designation is Ratchet 414. I have come from another reality to repair this city.
Black Belt wasn't sure if he liked this idea, and he had no idea what this Ratchet was actually talking about. But one thing was clear. He was not part of the Empire. Black Belt opened his muzzle to ask Ratchet to explain himself a little better when a loud crash sounded just behind him. Black Belt ducked and rolled out of the way just as a wooden wheel came flying out of the mist. The wheel continued past Black Belt and crashed into Ratchet's face. The wheel shattered and Ratchet blinked. Black Belt took a tentative step forward to see what had happened. As the dust settled, he could see what remained of a chariot, and looking up he saw a half-grown Pegasus flying down slowly with a white unicorn sporting a curly purple mane and tail. Black Belt waited for them to get a bit closer before jumping into the air and grabbing the Pegasus. She dropped her companion and fell under Black Belt's weight to the ground where he held her pinned. The unicorn, who had been whimpering, now shrieked as she began to fall full speed toward the ground. Suddenly Ratchet was there holding her.
Oh my!
She said, realizing that she was no longer falling.
Thank you very much, my dear, but I wonder if you wouldn't mind putting me down now, please.
Ratchet placed her gently on the ground, then reached down and picked up his visor out of the mist.
Didn't I knock that off in the other direction?
Black Belt asked.
Hey, let me up!
Yelled the Pegasus underneath him. Black Belt looked down at her and glared.
Who are you and what do you think you're doing here?
He asked. She squirmed for a moment, then gave up with a sigh.
I'm Rainbow Clash, and I'm saving this moron from falling to her doom because she wasn't smart enough to jump out of the chariot on her own,
She explained. The unicorn stopped primping her mane and looked over at the Pegasus.
Now, just a minute, you lady. If you hadn't been stirring up trouble in the first place.
She said, pausing as a thought struck her.
Excuse me, did you say Rainbow?
Rainbow Clash rolled her eyes.
Yes, Rainbow. Now are you going to let me go or not?
She asked.
I'm not letting either of you tell the Empire where we are.
Black Belt said firmly.
Are you serious? I hate the Empire.
Said Rainbow, starting to squirm again. The unicorn walked over and placed a hoof on Black Belt's shoulder.
I promise, we won't say a word to the Empire about you.
She smiled.
You promise? That's rich coming from a unicorn.
Rainbow scoffed. But the unicorn just smiled sweetly and said,
Oh, surely. Your mother told you how well her old friend Rarity was keeping secrets.
She asked. Black Belt let go of Rainbow Clash, who just blinked.
I'll come again.
She asked. A look of surprise appeared on Rarity.
Why? Your mother and I were very close friends, darling.
She said.
You know my mother.
Rainbow asked, jumping to her hooves.
Yes, dearie. Didn't she tell you about me?
Rarity asked.
She was put in prison when I was born.
Rainbow said, rubbing her shoulder with her hoof.
Oh, you poor thing. Well, don't you worry. Your Auntie Rarity will take care of you now.
She said, mussing Rainbow's mane.
Look, I hate to interrupt.
Black Belt interrupted.
But
Hello!
A voice called out from the mist. Every Pawnee turned to look, and Rarity held Rainbow Clash protectively.
Is anybody there?
Said a large bull as he walked out of the mist.
yes, we're over here. Now who are you and what are you doing here?
Asked Black Belt. The bull seemed a bit taken aback by this and stopped short.
Every pony calls me collateral damage.
He said.
I'm sorry, but I was told when I was banished that no one lives here. I didn't mean to disturb you.
Black Belt looked over the growing group and said.
Well, they don't know about us.
Collateral blinked.
Oh!
Just then every Pawnee heard the sounds of a scuffle. They turned back to look as two Pegasus ponies rolled out of the mist, wrestling one another. Rarity's horn glowed and the two were picked up by their ears and pulled apart.
That is quite enough, you two.
Rarity said.
If there's one thing I can't abide, it's pointless scrambles.
She started it.
They said in unison, pointing at one another.
I don't care who started it.
Said Rarity.
It ends now. Do I make myself clear?
The two nodded and Rarity let them go.
Good. Now what are your names?
She asked. They looked at each other, and then one of them, who was wearing sunglasses, said,
Am I Midnight Bliss? This is my sister Starlight Bliss. But why do you want to know our names? Didn't you just want us to date?
She asked.
Date?
Asked Rarity.
Yes.
Answered Midnight.
We are sent by Farm Lord Applejack.
She explained. Rarity scoffed.
I might have known. Well, I'm afraid you're quite a ways from the mines.
She said. Suddenly laughter rang out from the mist.
Who's there?
Rarity asked, but the laughter continued.
That's new. Still, it was only a matter of time.
Said Black Belt. The others looked at him.
Well, the mist wasn't always here. It appeared a few years ago. I figured that it might have been the ghosts of those who died here, so I stopped moving things around.
Black Belt explained. Collateral paused nervously.
Ghosts.
Rarity asked quietly. Said Starlight.
Fools.
The mist said.
You have no idea what is in store for you.
The mist collected and a pony materialized before them.
Who are you?
Asked Black Belt.
I know who he is.
Said Ratchet. The new pony smiled.
According to my memory banks, his name is King Sombra of the Crystal Empire.
Ratchet informed them. Sombra laughed again.
It's good to know they haven't forgotten me.
He said.
Where's the Crystal Empire? I've never heard of it.
Asked Rainbow Clash.
Nor have I.
Said Rarity.
It exists in another reality.
Said Ratchet.
He ruled as a tyrant, making all of his subjects slaves. He was banished and the entire empire disappeared for 1,000 years. When it reappeared, so did Sombra.
He continued.
When he tried to return to take back the empire, he was destroyed by Princess Cadence and by the Crystal Ponies.
That is what they think.
Sombra said.
For 1,000 years I lived between that world and this, preparing for my return. I connected myself to this world in case I was defeated. I could use it to regain my powers.
He explained. Every pony looked at each other again.
Then why are you still here?
Midnight asked.
Unfortunately, there has been a small change in my plans.
Said Sombra.
Really, and just what changes that?
Asked Black Belt. Sombra's smile deepened, and he said.
Perhaps the better question to be asking is what you are going to do when the Lord of Magic comes.
A sick feeling came over every pony.
Query.
Ratchet said.
Who is the Lord of Magic?
Her name is Dark Horse.
Said Rarity. Collateral shuddered.
She killed Princess Celeste the morning after her sister Princess Luna returned.
Black Belt said.
Then she made Luna Empress and created an Elkhorn army for her to take over Cloudsdale and the rest of the Pegasus.
Rainbow said.
Now every pony belongs to the Empire.
Said Collateral.
Every pony except me.
Said Black Belt.
Only because of me.
Said Sombra. Every pony turned back to look at the ex-king.
Over the years that I have been here, I have learned that this is one of the few places that her magic cannot reach. Each time that you visited, I shrouded yours so that she could not locate you when you left.
Black Belt's eyes narrowed.
Why?
He asked.
Simple.
Said Sombra.
I need an ollie to regain my horn for me. One of Darkhorse's patrols took it from me when I first came here.
Black Belt stomped his hoof.
So you were waiting until you had some pony more than me to trade her for your horn?
He said accusingly. Sombra shook his head.
No, when Ratchet here came into this world, he created a rebel which any magic user who was paying attention could detect. Dark Horse is on her way now to find out what caused the disturbance.
Sombra looked up at the sky.
She should be here by nightfall. I can protect you if you agree to help me.
Sombra concluded.
Why can't you just go get your horn yourself?
Asked Rarity.
Such menial tasks are beneath me.
Sombra said. Starlight scoffed.
Boy like you, not strong enough to fight Dark Horse, or smart enough to trick her.
She said.
Don't be so naive.
Sombra replied.
No one is strong enough to fight her.
Every pony blinked.
Then how are we supposed to get your horn?
Asked Midnight.
That is your problem.
Said Sombra.
Of course, if you won't get my horn for me, I suppose I could trade you for it. The choice is yours.
Sombra laughed, turning back into mist and sinking into the ground.